Welcome to Theme 2 Rights and Responsibilities of the AQA GCSE Citizenship course. Today you're going to be looking at universal human rights, particularly what are the key international agreements and treaties that protect our human rights. In this session, session 12, you're going to be looking at what the key words are to remember, the history of human rights, case studies involving Hurst, Abu Qatada and whole life sentences. You're then going to move on to look at the British Bill of Rights, why do government want to scrap the Human Rights Act, and finally we'll finish off by looking at what is the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child, with case studies. In this part of the session, you're going to be looking at what the key words are to remember. The key words to remember are rights. This is an entitlement or a freedom provided. These are often protected by law. If this is a 1-mark question in your exam, please ensure you refer to the terms entitlement and freedom in your answer. Responsibilities. This is a duty one must carry out. This is often attached to rights. What I mean by this is that in many situations where you are given certain rights or entitlements or freedoms, you must fulfill some form of responsibility or duty to be able to get that right. Again, if this is a question that is asked in an exam paper, you need to make sure you are using the term duty in your response. Absolute rights. These are rights that cannot be taken away from you in any circumstances by the state. What I mean by the term state is any public body. So government, parliament, police services, schools, justice system, etc. Qualified rights. These are the opposite to absolute rights. These are rights that can be taken away by the state in certain situations. An example of absolute rights here in the UK is freedom from torture or right to life. An example of qualified rights here in the UK are right to privacy. For example, a police officer can stop and search you if they believe you may have committed a crime or were involved in an incident involving a criminal activity. Freedom of speech is also a qualified right because hate speech is considered a crime, therefore limiting your human right to freedom of expression and freedom of speech. Also, bear in mind that in different countries, their interpretation of what constitutes absolute rights and what constitutes qualified rights can differ. For example, there are countries around the world that still practice capital punishment, also known as the death penalty. In those countries, they would not consider the human right to life an absolute right, but a qualified one. Here in the UK, the belief is that the right to life is an absolute right. Human rights. Human rights are fundamental, basic rights that all human beings have, simply because they are human. These are protected by law in the UK, the Human Rights Act. The Human Rights Act is the piece of legislation that protects our human rights and will prosecute anyone who violates them. Again, if you are asked what human rights are in your exam paper, you must refer to the terms fundamental and basic. You must also include the fact that it applies to all human beings, making it universal. We've just finished looking at the keywords to remember. In the next video, you'll be looking at the history of human rights.